we were talking about that, or you were saying that specifically, we almost always think of the gut as just a digestive organism, right? To digest and deliver the nutrients of our food to all the parts of our body. And we don't think of it as a defensive organism. And that's one of the new concepts that you really introduce in antiviral gut. Why is it important for the gut to be defensive? And I'm guessing it's fighting all of these viruses because we don't have hundreds of viruses at the same time. They're not acting out, let's say. We're not actively sick. So how does this defensive organism work, our gut?
There are a couple important pieces to it, and we can go through all of them. But the ones that I want people to remember are the gut immune connection, stomach acid, the gut lining, and gut bacteria. Those four. So let's start with the gut immune connection. You know, when I was in medical school 30 years ago, and I had a fantastic medical education at Columbia, but this whole idea of the immune system, it was a little bit ephemeral. It was like, you know, it's these antibodies and killer T cells floating around, but I didn't have a good sense, and I don't think my classmates did either, of where they were. Well, it turns out that somewhere around 70 to 80% of your immune system is physically located in your gut. So where in your gut is it, and why is it in such close interaction with this other stuff? So let's get to point number 2, the gut membrane. And this is a concept. I've been a gastroenterologist for 30 years, and I have to tell you, I did not think about this until about a decade ago. The fact that when you eat food and it's in your gut, it's not actually in your body. It's in this hollow tube that runs from your mouth all the way down to your anus, but it's a hollow tube that is really in constant interaction with the environment. So your GI tract is open to the environment. And in order for it to get inside your body, it has to go through the gut lining, which is a razor thin 1-cell membrane that separates everything in your gut lumen, in the open part of your gut, which is the outside of your body, from everything in the inside of your body, all your innards, your liver and your spleen and your lungs and your kidneys and your immune system. Because on one side of that razor thin lining, we have the trillions of microbes. And on the other side, we have all the different immune cells that are doing their thing, that are making antibodies and remembering the bad actor who got in 2 years ago and is back again. And now they're like, aha, I remember you from 2 years ago. That acquired immune system is going to remember it. But that interaction between the gut microbes and the immune cells across the gut lining is a hand and glove relationship. And I like to think of the gut microbes as air traffic control for directing the microbes. And I'll give you a really good example of how this works. There is a gut bacteria called Bacteroidetes fragilis, B-frag for short. And B-frag is a common gut microbe, and it's involved in doing surveillance. So when it sees a dangerous virus come along, like Ebola or SARS-CoV-2, it literally kicks the lining of the gut. It sends a signal to release something called interferons. So called because they interfere with viruses. Mm-hmm. And then interferons signal other immune cells. And then you get this whole immune cascade designed to fight the virus. And B-frag does this for viruses that are dangerous. But if it's a harmless virus, it's like, okay, stand down. So you start to see then that if the microbiome is disrupted, if you don't have enough B-frag, or the gut lining is unhealthy, you start to see all these points where things can really break down. So I've told you now, we've talked about the microbiome, the gut lining, the immune system. Number 4, stomach acid. Something that people think of as such a nuisance. One of your most important host defenses, it unravels and denatures viral protein, literally rendering it inactive. And for so many of us, the virus gets in through our digestive tract. We swallow it. So all the people out there who are taking proton pump inhibitors, those acid blocking drugs that shut down the proton pump, we had a really important study from 2020 that showed that those drugs can make you 2 to 4-fold more susceptible to COVID. Antibiotics too, for the reason you just mentioned, right? They're going to kill off a lot of the healthy bacteria. So much of creating an antiviral gut, Alexandra and Dotsie, is really about not doing the things to sabotage it, right? It's not about like what's a magic probiotic or supplement. It's about a lot of it, looking in your medicine cabinet and saying, am I blocking my stomach acid so it can't protect me? Am I killing off my bacteria with antibiotics? Am I poking holes in my gut lining with nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs? And really being clear on the risk-benefit ratio for some of these pharmaceuticals.
Can I just get clear on the role of viruses? Are some of those viruses also protecting us, or are they just, what are they doing in there?
Absolutely. So the same way we have good and bad gut bacteria, and we know that going on a scorched earth mission to destroy all bacteria will actually destroy our health, the same thing with viruses. So some of the viruses, as I mentioned, some of the viruses that are part of our genetic code are involved in creating placental proteins, in encoding memories. We have some viruses that protect us from bubonic plague and all kinds of different things. So again, it's a complex relationship, and we definitely have to move beyond this idea that viruses are bad and understand, how do we tolerate them? How do we use them to train our immune system so that we react when we need to, but we're not off destroying viruses and maybe, making our health worse in the process.
Is the gut acid that you were just speaking of, does that have anything to do with the reason people have heartburns and take antacids? Is that it?
Well, it does, but it's not the acid itself. It's the acid being in the wrong place. So stomach acid is released from the stomach, and its purpose is to help digest the food. There is a valve called the lower esophageal sphincter. That's a valve between the esophagus and the stomach. So you eat the food, it comes down the esophagus, it enters the stomach. After it gets into the stomach, that valve shuts pretty tight. And the reason that so many people have heartburn, acid reflux, GERD isn't because they overproduce acid. Overproduction of acid is a rare condition that very few people have. It's because that valve opens inappropriately and allows the acid to come up into the esophagus where it's not supposed to be. The acid's supposed to be in the stomach, digesting food. So it really is that inappropriate opening of the valve that causes symptoms. And what causes a valve to open inappropriately? Overfilling our stomachs, eating too much food, eating a high-fat diet, like lots of dairy, because that slows down the emptying of the stomach, causes a valve to open. Alcohol, chocolate, caffeine, all the fun stuff. Eating too late at night, that also does it because our stomach has a bedtime. It's not very active in terms of contractility once the sun sets. So all of these factors, which are primarily diet and lifestyle factors, can conspire to cause reflux. Now, some people have a valve that doesn't close as well, but again, that's rare. For most of us, it's we're eating too much, too late, wrong foods.
You said that dairy slows down digestion and some other. What are the mechanisms of that? How does
dairy,
a food like that?
Dairy is a high-fat food. And in fact, in the US, it is a major contributor to fat in the diet because people don't perceive it. When people are eating a porterhouse, they're like, okay, I'm eating red meat. I've got to be aware of my heart health, etc. But so many people think dairy is a health food. And so they're eating yogurt in the morning and they're eating cheese at lunch and they're having ice cream or some sort of cream sauce
and also
at night.
Because they think low-fat dairy is fine.
Exactly.
The dietary guidelines tell us that. So a lot of people are doing that. So why are they not in the clear?
So the problem is that dairy, by definition, is a high-fat, high-sugar food. Dairy is what gets a little bitty calf to grow to a very big cow very quickly. And any food that is high-fat, so I would include the porterhouse steak in this category, as well as the dairy, including the low-fat dairy. All of those foods basically slow down the emptying of the stomach because fat is a much more complex food for the body to digest. So when there's a lot of fat in the stomach, it means that the contractility slows down even more so that the stomach has a chance to break down the fat. And that leads to things sitting in the stomach and eventually having an opportunity to come back up, to reflux back up.